Hello and welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the Recovery Plug. How's it going, everybody? Well, I'm here. It's Saturday and I'm having a good time. I just had a VA event that I went to today at the St. Philip's College here in San Antonio, Texas. It was great. Had a bunch of support out that way, a bunch of programs for veterans, especially veterans who are struggling with homelessness and addiction. They get you in the right direction. So if you're a veteran out there and you're listening to this, yeah, it's a great opportunity. A bunch of networking and good programs to help out. I didn't know there was that many programs here in this city, but I mean, hey, this is Military City, USA. So what do you expect, right? I don't. There's no topic for today, so I'm gonna tell you a story. So it's a true story too. Uh, but before we get the story started, let me just a moment of silence, please, for the addict who still suffers, uh, followed by a serenity prayer. Moment of silence, if you will. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Alrighty, well, let's get started. Okay, you might be wondering why, if I'm, my podcast is usually a recovery and addiction based podcast, but what I like to do is every now and then is just throw in stories that has happened in my life, and this is a particular story that it may have some effect, and it may not. I mean, but the overall concept of me doing stories of things that happen in my life, even if they don't pertain to recovery or addiction, is just that's one of the things that you can do, that when you're not in the addictive state, that when you're in that realm of positivity and sobriety, that your mind is able to think about other things. And it's great to be able to do a video of just a random story, and my mind's not occupied with the addiction, my mind is furthest away from that, and that's one of the healthy things that I like to call setting healthy boundaries. So if I indulge in other topics and stuff, it's healthy for me personally, and it could be for somebody who's listening. So you might find the story interesting. So I think that being a person of I guess got a few years under my belt now. You know what I mean? I'm not a 20-year-old Navy guy anymore, and but I have gone through a lot of things in my life, and have gone through a bunch of adversity and came through that, and and I'm still working on a lot of stuff. So but anyway, let me get started on the story that I got for you today. Well, this story is a great one, and it's a true story, which is really cool about this. I'm going to do this in a couple of, probably in two parts, right? So this is a story of a sighting of a UFO, and it's a story that I'm going to give you my story, and then I'm going to tell you a different story that's going to intertwine with the same story. So I might lose you there a minute, but just hear me out. So here's a story of my UFO experience, and this is a true story, by the way. I didn't make this one up. I don't make any of my stories up, but this is a true story, and it gives me chills thinking about this story every time I tell it. But here it goes. Okay, so this is I think the year's like 1997, I believe is what it is, 1997, and I'm driving, and I'm in Texas, the state of Texas, and I'm driving down this old, I think it's Highway 87, I believe, but I'm coming from Fredericksburg, Texas. I'm driving from Abilene, Texas, down to San Antonio, Texas, and I'm driving late in the early morning hours, and it's just about 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning, And when I drive like that, Abilene and San Antonio, it's about a 5 year drive. About a 4 to 5 hour drive. And well, every time I drive out late like that, I like listening in that particular time of my life. There was a guy who had a radio station that he broadcast. I believe it was from the Nevada or Arizona desert, one of those. And his name was Art Bell, really cool dude. Look him up sometimes. But Art Bell was this, UFO enthusiast type guy, right? So I would listen to his stories because there was a lot of callers that would call in with their UFO experience and that sort of thing. So as I'm listening to Art Bell, I'm driving and I'm just leaving Fredericksburg, Texas. And from Fredericksburg, Texas to the interstate that I got to get to San Antonio is probably about a good 20 miles or so. And I want to say, yeah, it's about 20, maybe 20 to 40 at the most. But anyway, I'm driving, right? And, that's in that part of of Texas, it's what they call the hill country. So there's mountains going, the road's going up and down, and it's windy, you know what I mean? So it's cool terrain out that way, but a lot of deer. And so, you got to be on it, got to really, pay attention to when you're driving. So as I'm driving, and mind you, at that time I was still married. I got my wife in the passenger side, got my 2 daughters buckled up in the back, and I'm driving, right? And in the distance, I could see this light, and I could see it, but it was pretty bright. And I was just like, well, I thought it was part of the towers, because they had these towers that had the little flashing red lights and stuff. So I thought it was part of that. And the closer I'm getting to the light, the brighter it looks. And so I'm driving, and one part of that, the hill country there from Fredericksburg to San Antonio, there's a peak, which is the highest peak in that little hill country area there. So as I'm driving and I'm getting closer to that high peak, this thing is getting brighter and brighter, and the closer I get, the brighter it's getting. And it's then I finally realized that this thing is it's not part of those towers that are up there, and I think they're called radio towers or something like that. But it's not part of that stuff. And the closer I'm getting to the peak, the closer it's getting to the peak. And so I wind up getting to the very top of the peak, and I decide to pull over, because I could see this light, and at this point, I could see that it's some sort of craft, So at first I thought, okay, well, is that a helicopter or is that a plane or what the heck is it? But when I pulled over, this thing is coming towards me, and I want to say when I pulled over and I get out of the car and I'm looking at this thing, I'm gauging it at probably like 3 telephone poles high. You know what I mean? So in aircraft, sense, that's pretty low, right? So I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is 3 to 4 telephone poles high. And this thing's coming towards me still, but it's making this like negative air pressure sound. So it's kind of like if you ever walked into Sam's or Costco's, and when you walk through there, they got those blowing fans that blow down. As soon as you walk through those doors, well, it's kind of like that, but just a little bit quieter. And so I could hear it, and it just sounds like freaking like a vacuum of some sort, like a negative air pressure vacuum. And it's really, 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 really stealthy quiet. And but nonetheless, I could hear it. It's just not real loud, just like smooth, like that's how it's not blowing like real tornado windy, hurricane windy. No, it's just blowing like. So, but nonetheless, you can hear it, right? So anyway, when I pulled over, I decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get out, because this is like before like cell phones were like all techy or whatever. So I decided, you know what? I told my wife, I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna get the video camera. I want to video this thing. So I get out of the car, pop the trunk open, and I'm gonna get the video camera out because that's where it's at. And I just hear her yelling, get back in the car, but she says it in this scary, crying voice. So I knew that something was wrong. So I just closed the trunk. I got back in, and I was like, "What's wrong?" She goes, "Let's just go. It doesn't seem right." And she's looking at it, and I'm looking at it. And when I get back in the car, by this time the thing's like right on top of us, and it just looks like it's coming down a little bit further, and I could see there was three lights. It's this triangle-shaped craft. There's three lights, bright lights, and they're in each corner in a sense. But what's crazy is that they're like recessed lights, but because they're recessed up, because I can literally see where the lights are. You could see the wall of the craft coming down, and I want to say probably 2 feet probably that it comes down, and then it curves down, over. But it's a solid piece, and it's just weird looking, but it's triangle shaped. I could see the recessed lights up there. There's 3 of them, and this thing's hovered right over me. And so I decided, okay, well, let's get out of here. And I put the car in drive. As I'm driving away, this thing disperses in 3 different directions. It's just like 2 lights go that way, and 1 light goes this way. Like, boom, like in a split second, they all disappeared. Like, they dispersed in 3, that thing just like came apart in 3 different pieces, and the lights just dispersed. I mean, in a split second, that's how fast it was that they disappeared. Like, I mean, it was like less than a second. They disappeared into the distance, like, boom. And I got this picture up here that I'm going to show you. I don't know if you could see that. Let me get this thing over here. But if you could see here what I got, I kind of drew this thing up. Well, you see that? Okay. This right here is, let me put this mic down. Hopefully you can still hear me. But if you see, this is the road where I was coming up through this. I was coming up through here, driving up, and when I got to the peak of the mountain, I decided to pull over right here. See my car? And then the craft, I saw it this way. And I could see the triangle craft like that, and then it got right over us. So you see here, it was like this. It had these 3 lights here, and it was like this, and this is the way it dispersed. It dispersed this way, and that way. And then this is just a drawing that I drew of the craft, it looked like how it was recessed, and this I left out so that you could see how it would have looked. Like, you could see the sidewalls here, and then it had the 3 lights. But this, I'm sure, I don't know if it was, you could see or whatever, but I'm assuming that it was covered, because everything was covered on the outside. It was just one solid piece of metal, and it was the lights, you could see them up here, but they were recessed up because you could see this wall coming down. You know what I mean? So you could see this wall coming down here like it is, and this obviously was closed. But yeah, so I was just freaked out about that, right? So I decided that, well, let's get out of here. And, as soon as I got on the road and gave it the gas, that's when that thing dispersed. Well, what's weird about this story, this is the really freaky part, is that 10 years or so, like, I want to say like in 2015 or 16, one of those years, 2015 or 16, I'm at my house, and a friend of mine, his name is Mark, and Mark calls me up and he goes, "Hey man, are you home?" Da da da. And I go, "Yeah man, I'm here, dude. What's up?" He goes, "Well, dude, I got a friend of mine. I want you to meet him, and I want you to tell him the story that you told to me about your encounter." And I was like, yeah, bring him over, right? So the guy gets here and he's like, okay, I let them in, and he's like, hey, this is my buddy Mark, and I was like, what? And he goes, yeah. He goes, we got the same name. So my friend, his name's Mark Hernandez, and the guy he brought is also named Mark Hernandez. You know what I mean? How weird is that? So it was a coincidence, right? Or I don't know. It's just freaky to me because there was two guys that I know, and they're both my friends now, and they're both named Mark Hernandez. Well, Mark Hernandez that brought Mark Hernandez to my house is Navy, and the guy, the visitor, Mark Hernandez, is Marines, and he's a Marine. So I sit down. We sit down. I gave these two guys a beer that I had in the fridge, and so we're sitting there, and we're shooting the shit, right? And so he's like, yeah. So tell him, what's up with that story, da da da. And I was like, okay. So I get along. I got start, elaborating on the story, and like halfway through the story, about the point to where I told him that the lights dispersed, the guy like backs up a little bit in the chair, and he puts his hand up like this. He goes, hold up. And then he goes, did he talk you into this? And I'm like, what do you mean talk me into this? He goes, yeah, what's up with that? And I was like, he goes, never mind. He goes, just finish the story. So I, continued the story, the one that I just finished telling you. And so I told him, yeah, so, that was it. After it dispersed, and, I just took off and da-da-da. And so he's like, dude, he tells me, he goes, you're really freaking me out right now. And I go, why? He goes, because, I have never told that story to anyone. And when Mark told me the story, I freaked out because the way you described your story is exactly the same way that my encounter was when I saw it. But when I was enlisted in the military, and he goes, but I saw this in Lawton, Oklahoma in 1970, whatever. And he goes, I got chills right now. He goes, because I've never told anybody that story, and you described that story exactly the way I saw it that night in 1970. I think it was 78 or something like that. I'm not real sure, but it was in Lawton, Oklahoma, in some Marine base, I guess, out there somewhere. And I've never been there, but he was telling me this, and I'm like, and I got this thing that I believe something, I don't know, it's just, if you have this symbol, I guess it's like an hourglass symbol is what I called it, on your hand. And I asked him, I said, can I see your hand? I said, when you told me to stop and you put your hand up like this, I noticed something on your hand. And then he puts his hand up, and then I see it, and I said, okay. I told him, I said, yeah, you got the symbol. I said, yeah. I said, you could feel energies. You can sometimes probably see ghosts or hear things, hear people or entities and that sort of thing. And he's like, he's nodding his head, yeah. And the other Mark, my friend Mark, tells me, what symbol are you talking about? And I go, I don't know. I said, well, I mean, I don't know if it's a real deal, but this is just everybody that I've ever met who could do this has that same thing on their hand. And he puts up his hand, he goes, do I got it? And I looked at his hand, and he didn't have it. So that was kind of weird to me. So, yeah, so my point is that how ironic, and how could that be that my story is exactly the same story that guy Mark had, and except that it was like 20 years later. Like, his happened in the 70s, mine happened in the 90s, and it was the same story. But like, we both like our paths crossed to elaborate that story to each other. And what he told me was that he goes, that night, or after we finished watch that night, because we had the mid watch, it was after we finished the watch that night, we were all called up to see the whoever was their supervisor or whatever, and we all got we were all asked what we had seen that night, and we were all told that we didn't see anything, and that to get ready because you're getting shipped off to a different base, and all of those Marines who were on watch that night all got shipped off somewhere else and were told not to say anything. And I was just like, what the heck? And he's like, dude, he goes, I don't know, I don't even know what to think right now. He goes, you really freaked me out. I'm freaked out right now coming over here because of that story. He goes, I've never told anyone that story, and you described it exactly like if you were there, like if we were at the same place. And he goes, that is just too freaking weird. So me and that guy, Mark, we became pretty good friends, since that day. And that's not my only sighting, if you would, when it comes to UFOs, but that is one of them, and that is one that I'll never forget. And man, I wasn't high, I wasn't drunk, I wasn't anything. I mean, I was just driving that day in 1997 or 1998 with my family. I mean, we were coming from visiting family, and we're going back home to San Antonio, and that happened. And it is a memory that will probably never go away. But if anybody has ever seen a craft like that, or you had some sort of an experience like that, let me know, and or if not, share my video. And so normally I like to talk about motivated things and recovery and addiction, but today I figured, hey, you know what? Let me tell my UFO story, and so I thought, it's just it's still in a sense therapeutic for me to do these videos, and that's why I do them. So it's entertainment in a sense too, but people like to hear stories, and especially when they're true. And ladies and gentlemen, that story is true, and it is something that I always remember. And I got a few other stories of what I like to call my extraterrestrial, UFO, alien, whatever you want to call it. But there's real deals out there, and I know because I've seen them. And but anyway, so just if you would, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Really help me out, launch a few of these projects that I got coming up. The more people I got watching these videos, the better. And the more that'll help spread the message, to help the addicts and the homeless community and veterans who are struggling. And so please subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, shoot me a comment, or whatever, and I will greatly appreciate that. So again, just wanted to share one of my stories, and till the next time on When the Smoke Clears, I am the Recovery Plug.